What's going on, guys? So, Elon Musk has started the great Twitter wars. Russia is at war in Ukraine. The laptop from hell is getting ready to come back again. And never has there been a more appropriate time than now for me to say, welcome to the circus. Shanghai's on lockdown. They're going to force 20-some million people to take COVID tests. People screaming from high rises. You've seen the videos. They remind me of the same videos that we watched in 2019 whenever I first opened my channel, because I could see that what was going on there was coming here. Which makes me worry that what's going on there is going to come here. Which would also line up with the fact that there's going to be an election soon. Because although it hasn't come out officially in mainstream media, it's become quite obvious for anyone who does their own research that the entirety of the nonsense around CV was all about the 2020 election and mail-in ballots. Not sure if I'm allowed to say that on this platform anymore, but honestly, I don't give a. This isn't something I'm doing to try to make money or promote myself any longer. I've long since given up that idea because they're not going to allow that. Perhaps someday, if the great Twitter wars go our way, you might be allowed to speak your truth on Twitter again. But on YouTube, with Google and Alphabet, that will never, ever happen. I don't post very often to my channel anymore because of the nonsense that happened to me in my personal life whenever I was actually pushing my channel hard. But every once in a while, there comes a story where I have to intercede and make a video. Recently, NBC News made a news story that I couldn't believe. You know, every once in a while, a story comes out in the mainstream media and you just look at it and you read it. And then you read it again, and you're like, wow, they really said that. The article I'm talking about, and the actual news spot, which I'll play for you, was that in a break with the past, the US is using intel to fight an info war with Russia, even when the intel isn't rock solid. It doesn't have to be solid intelligence, one US official said. It's more important to get out ahead of them, the Russians, Putin specifically, before they do, bunny ears up, something. Now, I tried to make a video at the beginning of this Russian-Ukrainian conflict, getting people to understand how completely backwards and insane the coverage of this war has been, and it was immediately removed from YouTube. But before it was, I was the subject of some pretty harsh comments on my channel because people are just, I don't know how to explain it, they're just incapable of seeing through wartime propaganda. When MSNBC and Fox News start agreeing on something, people have a very hard time seeing through it. It's actually quite amazing. Having been lied into a war previously myself and having experienced the effects of that war, it's a lot harder for them to do that to me again, because the consequences of being fooled were so heavy in my life and ongoing. But people who don't have that personal experience, when MSNBC and Fox News start pushing the same bullshit, they have a hard time seeing through it. That's just the reality of things. And in the midst of MSNBC and Fox News promoting all the same issues around this war in Ukraine, what in my opinion is essentially a civil war the United States is muddling in, they come out and they say, hey, we're lying constantly to you, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing we're lying. We're just going to listen to what NBC News said. Let's go.
Start this hour with the U.S. using intelligence to fight an information war and doing it to Russia for months now, and it's working. NBC News national security correspondent Ken Delaney in live.
They've been doing it to Russia now, and it's working. But what they don't say is they've been doing it to the American population for decades, and it's been working there as well. See, the model that they're using against us in regards to the Russians, they've been using against the American public for decades. Okay? They always start and perfect their craft before they use it in a situation like this conflict. God, I hate that dog.
In Washington. Ken, I want to start by giving people an example of what this is so they know what we're talking about. Take a look.
They're also suggesting that Ukraine has biological and chemical weapons in Ukraine. That's a clear sign he's considering using both of those.
Ken, can you explain to our viewers what was going on there and what NBC News has learned about that claim this week from 3 different U.S. officials?
Yeah, that was a great example of what we're talking about. That was based on declassified intelligence, but we're also told the intelligence wasn't very clear about what exactly was going on. And they decided to disclose it as a way of deterring Russia from doing that and putting the world on.
They lied. They lied. They lied. They lied. They lied. Intentionally.
Notice that this could happen. And that's what's going on here, the big picture. This is an unprecedented use of declassified intelligence. We've never seen this level of information warfare before from the U.S. government.
Oh, this is an unprecedented use of information warfare. We've never seen this type of warfare used by the U.S. intelligence community. Interesting. If you're like me, you can think of 1,000 different examples right now off the top of your head where they've been using this type of information warfare, but let's go to one very specific type involving the Russians. Also, NBC News. Do you remember this story? Remember those Russian bounties for dead U.S. troops? Biden admin says the CIA intel is not conclusive. The Biden administration made it clear Thursday that the CIA has only, quote, low to moderate confidence in its intel on those alleged Russian bounties for U.S. troops. You see, this happened back in April of 2021. So when NBC says, oh, it's the first time we've ever seen this type of information warfare, you can conclusively prove that that's not true using their own reporting about Russians. Now, there's a million other examples I could show you about a million other situations from a million other news agencies, but let's just keep it with the Russians and with NBC News. The Russian bounty story was bunk intelligence released to put fear in the American population and to rile everyone up. Oh, it's information warfare, unprecedented. This is unprecedented the way they're using this. And if you keep your eye on the big picture, it's okay. It's great they're doing it.
And what they're doing is they're trying to preempt the Russians, get ahead of Russian disinformation, even mess with Vladimir Putin's.
So we're going to get ahead of Russian disinformation by creating American disinformation.
Brain, as one person put it, leave him off balance to try to show that the United States knows what Russia is up to and is going to get ahead of it. It's really rather remarkable. Another example was when they announced that Russia had gone to China to ask for help with getting some weapons. That hasn't come to pass yet, and it was almost a way of putting China on notice. Hey, we know what's going on here. Don't let this happen. So
it wasn't a way of putting fear into the American population and ginning up support for the war in Russia and Ukraine. No, that's not what it was. It was a way of, quote, putting China on notice that, hey, this hasn't happened yet, but we're saying it's already happened. We're lying to our own population, and we're doing that to tell you, don't do that. Wow.
really interesting and
Yeah.
unprecedented use of intelligence here, Alice.
Yeah, and Ken, as you just said, not just intelligence here, unprecedented use. One U.S. official telling you it doesn't even have to be solid intelligence when we talk about it. It's more important to get out ahead of them. Putin specifically, before they do something, it's preventative. What else have you learned about?
It's preventative. It's preventative lying, guys. They're lying to us as a way to be preventative, to make sure that what they're saying doesn't happen. So what they're saying is happening. They're only saying it's happening as a way to prevent what they're saying is happening from actually happening. See, they're lying for your own good. It's your own good they're lying to you for. Okay?
That strategy?
Well, you know, that may have been a little too candid for some folks at the White House. Their message is...
Translation, well, some people at the White House probably wouldn't have wanted them to tell the truth about how they're lying to the American population. It's so funny.
Basically, everything we say is vetted and rock solid, and there is a process.
Everything they say is vetted and rock solid, even though we just told you we're outright lying. I guess vetted and rock solid is just another thing that has changed definitions, like, I don't know, man and woman. You know, nothing means what it means anymore. It's all abstract and in the ethereal, right? It's like, yeah, it's vetted and rock solid, even though it's, you know, not.
By the National Security Council. It's so robust that the Director of National Intelligence and other intelligence agencies have had to surge staff and resources to this declassification process because they have to scrub this intelligence to make sure that whatever they're releasing doesn't expose sources and methods. But that
so that's so they have to scrub it and make sure it's okay that it doesn't reveal sources and methods. They're not scrubbing it and making sure it's okay to make sure that it's truthful. Truthful doesn't matter anymore. The truth doesn't matter anymore because after all, there is no more truth. There's your truth and their truth and my truth, and there's no more the truth, which is, I don't know, communist subversion. I don't know how many people have listened to Yuri Bezmenov, and I know all of the people who listen to my channel have, so you know what the deal is, right? The whole point of communist subversion is to destroy the truth, to destroy the nuclear family, and to destroy the truth.
That source was absolutely correct. It's clear what the strategy is here, is to get stuff out that is designed to, again, you know, show the Russians, you know,
It's designed to get stuff out that is designed, as opposed to just putting out the truth. What the intelligence community and the media has gotten together to do is to put stuff out that is designed.
The United States knows what they're doing, put the world on notice that this is happening. Remember, they talked about that false flag operation that they thought Russia was going to try to do at the start of the invasion. You know, that never came to pass, but that may have been preempted by the U.S. releasing that information out.
Oh, so remember when they were saying Russia was going to do a false flag operation, but the false flag operation never happened? It was because they put out a false flag operation in the intelligence community, circa the media, and that prevented the false flag information. You know, false flags to prevent false flags. Quite astounding. How genius.
Ken, these information leaks, as you've said, may have delayed Russia's invasion by weeks, even months, which sounds great. That is a good thing. But what are the pros and cons here? How could something like this backfire?
Well, that was a great example because by saying to the world that U.S. intelligence shows that Russia is poised to invade, that was a big risk because if they had been wrong, we would all be saying, oh, there's another case where U.S. intelligence blew it, you know, Iraq, WMD, and now this. But they were right, and as a matter
And in the midst of all this, we have an admission that the intelligence community was wrong about Iraq and WMDs. That's very interesting because the mainstream media's position is that, oh, there were WMDs found in Iraq. Yeah, there were. You talk to any progressive on the planet Earth and they'll tell you, oh, there were WMDs found in Iraq, which I find extremely bizarre because the progressive left used to be against war. They used to be against the Iraq war. They used to be the ones screaming that Donald Trump was going to what? Get us into World War III. And now these people are screaming, we must start World War III. What a world I live in right now.
In fact, for example, France, the military intelligence agency there, they predicted that Russia would not invade. The head of that agency had to resign over that. So that was a great call, a risky call, though.
Oh, imagine that. A country that forces their intelligence officials to resign when they get things wrong. We don't even make our intelligence officials resign when they come to Congress and lie under oath and commit a felony. We actually just kind of like allow them to go work at MSNBC. Amazing, France. Good job.
The risk here is if the U.S. gets something demonstrably wrong, it really would undermine American credibility. And
you mean like saying that Russia bounties was true? You mean like saying that Ukraine and Russia, there was going to be a false flag operation? You mean like saying that the U.S. didn't have biolabs in Ukraine? You mean like getting those things wrong? Oh, wait. No, right. That was for our own good. They were doing that for our own good to preempt Putin, right? Oh, it's so hard to keep up.
Is right into Moscow's hands. So far, that hasn't happened, Alice.
So far, that hasn't happened.
News on Russia, this time from the Justice Department. The DOJ has charged a Russian oligarch with evading U.S. sanctions from 2014, also taking down a Russian computer network called Botnet. The DOJ really...
Oh, God. It's called a botnet. A botnet. There are thousands and thousands of botnets. They took down a botnet. Oh, these people are paid six-figure salaries to sit up here and spew filth, and they're morons.
Busy here. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, this is a big announcement. First of all, charging that Russian oligarch with sanctions violations. It's really interesting because oligarchs have been doing this for years, right? This is how they get around sanctions. They use proxies, they use relatives, they put their money in LLCs.
They use proxies, right? Proxies and relatives. Interesting. So oligarchs avoid sanctions and enrich themselves by using proxies and relatives. It's almost like, I don't know, if Joe Biden had approved a bunch of financing to go to Ukraine and his son was sitting on the board of a power company that he was then paid large amounts and then 10% was sent back to the big guy. It's almost like that whole situation. Wow, so they've been doing this for a long time. Interesting.
It can violate U.S. law. It's rarely prosecuted. Now the DOJ...
No shit, it's rarely prosecuted. We have somebody in the presidency right now that was doing this.
Is putting resources into going after this, and they're saying this is only the beginning. On the botnet, that's like a network of computers that can be used for offensive cyber operations, can really wreak havoc. They said they took that one down before it even got off the ground. They said it was run by Russian intelligence. And lastly,
they said it was run by national Russian intelligence, right? But how can we believe what they said about the botnet? Because they also just said they're lying on purpose for our own good to preempt Putin.
Garland talked about potential war crimes and prosecutions of war crimes. Take a listen to what the Attorney General had to say.
Our message to those who continue to enable the Russian regime through their criminal conduct is this. It does not matter how far you sail your yacht. It does not matter how well you conceal your assets. It does not matter how cleverly you write your malware or hide your online activity. The Justice Department will use every available tool to find you, disrupt your plots, and hold you accountable.
Could you please tell me what plots you've disrupted? Can you please tell me how these Russian oligarchs who are having... Listen, I hate Russian oligarchs, and I hate all oligarchs. We just got done talking about Joe Biden, who is an oligarch. All that aside, how exactly are you disrupting what Putin's doing in Ukraine by collecting all these people's belongings? Explain to me exactly how this is affecting the Russian military, because as far as I can tell, you've been doing that since the beginning of this action, and it's had exactly zero effect. No effect whatsoever. At the State of the Union, Biden bragged about how the ruble is like 30% down from what it was just last week. The ruble is higher now than it was at the beginning of this action. Explain to me how any of this is having any effect whatsoever. It's not. It's just not. It makes people feel good that rich people had their yachts taken from them. In the meantime, Jeff Bezos has to have a literal bridge deconstructed so that his super yacht can be floated into the ocean. Nobody in our country has a problem with that. War crimes were committed in Iraq. I know, I was there. Nobody has a problem with that. We live in the largest empire on earth. Nobody has a problem with that. But let's just change our profile pictures to the Ukrainian flag, switch it up from the I got vaccinated profile picture, and everybody feels good. It's what it's about. As long as you feel good about yourself, you're so virtuous. We're all so virtuous.
That's a pretty significant threat to some of these oligarchs who have been operating with impunity around the world, even while under sanctions. We'll have to see whether the DOJ can deliver on that, because all these people have very good lawyers, and these are labor-intensive cases, Allison.
Ken, covering a whole lot for us today, including that very interesting strategy from the White House. Thank you so much.
It's an interesting strategy. So when the White House comes out and admits that they're lying to the American population through using the intelligence community, through their proxies in the media, they label it an interesting strategy. What an interesting strategy. All right, guys. I just had to make this particular video because what I'm seeing happening in the United States is very disconcerting. I don't know, I use freedom fries as the example all the time. You know, right before I went to Iraq, everybody in the country was eating freedom fries because the French refused to support our war in Iraq. The French said that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And so we took French fries off the map and we called them freedom fries. Everybody was eating freedom fries. Decades later, the intelligence community is like, whoops, the French were right. But hey, they were wrong about predicting Putin going into Ukraine. God help us. I love you guys. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Talk to you later.